Welcome back to another episode of the Flying Upstream podcast. As always, we welcome you to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss any of the goodness that we offer with regards to all of the unconventional and against the grain aspects that life has to offer. Today's episode promises to dish out just that, a lot of goodness. Let's jump right in.
Today we've got an amazing guest speaker. We've got Alma Collins Thomas, and she's a multifaceted professional with a broad spectrum of skills and achievements. She holds the titles of an ordained minister, educator, motivational speaker, playwright, and author. Alma is a holder of 2 Bachelor of Science degrees, one in Human Services with a focus on children and families, and another in Christian Studies. In addition, she imparts her knowledge as a Bible school teacher. In her free time, she has authored 3 books. We are so excited to have her here today. Alma, welcome to the Flying Upstream podcast.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be here on this afternoon.
Wonderful, Alma. Thank you for being with us. We are very excited to share your story with our audience. And we always like to start at the beginning. The beginning sometimes tends to get left out when we talk about the grain stuff. We tend to focus on what's today. But let's start at the beginning. Can you share with us some of what started this story for you? Some of your early life that has impacted where you are today the most?
Okay. I had a pretty normal upbringing. I was brought up by a single parent, my mom, and that's part of the reason why I am so resilient is because my mother was very, very strong and independent and did her best to push education, being better than she was. So that's one of the reasons why that I'm so strong. And as I said, I lived on Long Island in New York all of my life. I was born in Mississippi, but I migrated here when I was 3 years old, and this is where I've been for the last 57 years. I attended elementary school with a diverse people. I attended Hofstra University on Long Island. So my upbringing in early life was pretty normal. It was in 2009 that my life took a drastic turn. One of the worst things that a parent could ever go through. I lost my son at 18 years old to heart disease. And he passed away on February 13th, 2009. And on April 17th, 2009, I was going to unalive myself, not because I wanted to be unalive, but because I wanted to spend my son's first birthday in heaven with him. I woke up that morning and I said, I wonder if Grandma baked him a cake. I wonder are the angels singing happy birthday to him. And then I decided, I said, nobody can spend your child's birthday like you did. For the last 18 years, I made my son's birthday very special, and this year should be no different. So I poured a bottle of pills into my hand, and I was about to take them, and I heard a small voice say, if you do it, you'll never see him again. And I put the pills back in the bottle and I cried myself to sleep. But that was the day that I acknowledged to myself that I wasn't as strong as I was praying to people. On the outside, I was strong, and people were saying, I don't know how you did it. I could have never did it. And on the inside, I was silently dying because my spirit person was all right, because I understand to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, and all of my religious upbringing. I know that God didn't make any mistakes, but the mother in me was hurting. People were saying, um, at least he's in a better place. And I know um that heaven is objective. But to me, I was thinking, well, let your little Johnny go to the better place and let my Tyshawn come home and let me be able to see him in his room and at the dining room table. And then they would say, "Oh, someone else would have a testimony. Oh, my 98-year-old grandfather had a heart attack, but he survived." And I'm thinking in my mind, 98 years old, why did God take my 18-year-old and leave your 98-year-old grandfather here? And I knew that those thoughts wasn't right. I knew those thoughts wasn't healthy. So that was at that time that I decided that I needed to talk to a professional that was new. If you know anything about the African American church and community, mental health is taboo. We don't tell our business to strangers. We sweep things up underneath the rug. Therapy is not for us. And in the church, it's if you love Jesus, you'll get through this. And I knew I loved Jesus more than anything in the world. And I was going to church on Sunday with these same issues, and I was leaving with these same issues, just a little bit oilier. Because of all the oil that they had slept on my head and said was gonna be all right. And I went to EAP, the mental health piece at my job, and I knew the stages of grief because I minored in psychology in college. But going through the stages of grief and each stage of grief is two separate things. I couldn't understand how 1 minute I was at acceptance, I knew this had happened, and the next minute I was back at denial. This can't be happening to me. When you're reading it, you think it's supposed to go in a line, but it doesn't go in a line. It fluctuates back and forth. And when I was able to identify the things that triggered me, like going to graduations of children that were around the same age as my son, would trigger me because I would be thinking, I'll never be able to see my son graduate from law school. I'll never be able to see him graduate from college. And I would go to these events and I would be hysterical crying, and people looking at me like, this is a happy occasion. Why is this lady hysterical crying like she's at a funeral? But it's because that was a trigger for me. So eventually I was able to turn my pain into passion, and I started a scholarship in my son's honor. And to date, I've given out 17 scholarships to African American boys of single parents who have been accepted um, into college, and they get a $500 scholarship to buy their books, clothes, whatever they need to be able to go to college. Um,
Well, that's really amazing.
on.
Yeah. Alma, this is such an incredible story. I want to pause you there just for a moment. I'm curious to know, so far in your story, what are some of the key lessons that you've taken away? Like, I can really feel your grief and the struggle. Louisa and I are also mothers, and um, I can only imagine how traumatic and depressing and difficult it was. But what were some of the lessons that you kind of took away from it?
That one of the lessons that I took away from it is that even in your darkest situation, that God is with you. My son was 18 years old when he passed, and of course, I didn't have him in a life insurance because you expect you to to leave before your child. So when he passed away, I wasn't prepared, and to know that my community in 2 days raised $10,000, and the funeral home director that didn't know my son from a hole in a wall, but because people was calling him and telling him what an amazing young man he was, he took off every cost that he would have made. We only had to pay for the outside things. And when when my son passed away, I prayed and I said, God, I just want to put him away. I don't want to have a GoFundMe page. I just want to put him away with dignity. And God answered my prayers in 2 days without a GoFundMe page, with only people in my community that I know. They raised $10,000. They took $10,000 down to the funeral home. They Another one of my friends bought his homegoing outfit. My sister and my friends, they picked out the casket, everything. I did none of that stuff. So one of the lessons that I learned is that even in your darkest time, when you don't understand, God is there, and when he says in his word, he'll be there till the end of times. No matter what you going through, he is there. I also learned that if something triggers you, that don't try to make people happy. Don't try to make people see you're strong. If you're not strong and you're struggling, don't struggle in silence. Let people know, no, I can't do that because it triggers me. No, I can't go there because it triggers me. I can't celebrate that because
Alma,
so don't suffer in silence. Share what you're going through with people.
I love that. I love that you're sharing that because that's something that's really important. I think culturally we have all been sort of conditioned to deal with our own grief. In some societies, very few. It's very okay to kind of open up about these things. But I think that in a lot of our cultures and in American society overall, we really tend to encourage those people to kind of deal with it. Put your head down. Don't let your emotions affect you. And I know you mentioned the African American community sort of operating that way as well. What is one limiting belief that you feel you had to overcome to be able to get to a place where you understood the importance of not suffering in silence, of opening up, and of bringing in your community to help you get through this really difficult times that you encountered?
That I had to get over the limiting belief that it's okay to not be okay, and that there's not a separation between Jesus and therapy. Jesus and therapy go hand in hand. Just like if you have a physical health problem and you're prescribed medication, you take your medication, and people don't say, "Oh, you don't love God because you're relying on medication." So your mental health is just as important as your physical health, because if you don't take care of your mental health, your physical health will eventually suffer.
That is such good advice. I so appreciate you saying that, especially in our society too. And I'm curious to know, considering all that you've been through, if you could go back and tell your younger self something to get you through all this that you didn't know was coming, what would that be?
Well, um, that no matter what the circumstances are, don't give up, don't throw in the towel. Like you said, I had some a lot of bad chapters in my life. my son passed away. Then after my son passed away, I the building I lived in caught on fire, and they condemned all the apartments. My apartment didn't burn, but they condemned a whole row of apartments, and I found myself homeless. After that, I thought I had met um Mr. Goodbar, but when I married him, I found out that he was sticker. He was addicted to crack cocaine, and we got a divorce because he was in denial that he had a problem. And you can't help someone that you want to help more than they want to be helped. And then after all that, in 2021, I suffered a massive stroke that left my right side immobile. And as we said earlier, I'm an author and I write with my right hand and I type. That's why when you said, can we go on a computer? I have computers, but I can't use them anymore because I can only use one side. But I had a choice. I had a choice to be better or bitter. And I chose to be better. That before my stroke, I wrote 3 books. After my stroke, I have written 4 books with my left hand using one finger on my telephone because I refuse to allow circumstances and situations to stop me, to stop my dreams. I learned how to accept the things that I can still do, and I learned how to accept the things that I can't still do and embrace the things that I can still do. Um 20 years ago, it was prophesied that I wasn't just local, that going to be global. And then all that stuff happened: the fire, the son dying, the divorce, the stroke. And now I'm laying on my bed, like I'm conducting this interview from my bed, my hospital bed, in my house. And so, go on. So it was prophesied that I wasn't just local, I was going to be global. A year ago, my apostle told me again. He called me an ambassador and he said, you're not just gonna be local, but you're gonna go global. So now I'm laying in my bed in the place where I thought I would never preach again, I would never speak again. And I want you to know that by not giving up on my dreams, not allowing circumstances to stop me, I have spoken on over 300 podcasts, conferences, and seminars since January, January of 2024, all over the world, right from my bed. And there are people that have 2 legs and 2 arms, and they have some bad chapters in their life and they give up and they stagnated in that point of thinking, woe is me, I can't walk, woe is me. But here I am, glory be to God, on my hospital bed, immobilized, still living my dream life.
I love that. I love that you're sharing that because I think a lot of us, especially when, when we don't have to worry about any difficulties, when we don't have to worry about any constraints, any physical, any health issues, we tend to walk around life and kind of putting to the back burner the things that are important to us, the way that we really want to feel and walk through life. And I love that you're sharing that because you have accomplished quite a bit. I know that you have a lot of education and you're an author, and everything that you've been through has been really life changing, it seems, because it has led you here, right? It has led you to where you are today, doing the work that you do today. And I wonder, Alma, just for our listeners, because I think one of the things that I always like to bring up is the fact that it's kind of easy to talk about these things when we're on the other side of them. You know, Kristen, myself, and you, we've done a lot of work to get to where we are today, to live our lives authentically. We pursue the things that we love because we know this is how we want to experience our lives. But for listeners and people who may not be there yet, what are three steps that you would recommend that they could take toward bettering their life in terms of living a life that is more in alignment with them, even if it's against the grain for what everyone else in society says it should look like or they should be doing, or it's okay that they pursue at this time?
That number one is whatever is your dream, whatever it is that you want to do, don't give up. Even though you might meet some detours in the road, it's just like if you're traveling on a trip and you miss your turn, you don't pull over to the side of the road and say, I'm not going anymore. I'm not leaving from this spot because I missed my turn and now I'm going to stay right here in this car in this spot forever. No, there's there's such a thing as a GPS system, so you can put your destination into your GPS system, and it says rerouting, 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 and it gives you another way to get to the same destination, but it might not have been the way that you planned. So in life, you may hit some detours, you might miss your turn, you might have to take a U turn, but don't give up. Don't stop. Don't stay stagnant. Whatever it is that you want to do, and you know what? Do it today. Don't put off for tomorrow because tomorrow is not promised to us. On April 23rd, when I went to bed, I had all kinds of plans for April 24th. But when I woke up on April 24th, I couldn't move my leg. I couldn't move my arm. I spent 3 days in the ICU, and the doctors and the nurses had given up on me. They called my mother and my daughter to the hospital, and they said, if you want to see her on this side, you got to rush to the hospital right now. They gave me a 99% chance of living and a one of dying. They gave me a 99% chance of dying and a 1% chance of living. And that's when I realized that the cemeteries are full of unfulfilled potentials, failed dreams, and visions. Don't die with your purpose inside of us. Each and every one of us has a purpose. We have a destiny. Find your purpose, find your why, and whatever it is, take one step towards it. If you want to go back to school, take one course. If you want to start a business, get your EIN number. If you want to write a book, start by writing one chapter. Don't give up, don't give out, and don't give in.
That's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Alma. With all of this, um, now a lot of this dark chapter behind you, going forward, what are you looking forward to? What's next for you, and what is really bringing you joy and purpose in your world now?
Right now, I am pursuing my master's degree in divinity. After I get my master's degree in divinity, I'm gonna get my doctorate in divinity. Um, I'm writing more books. For the last 2 years, because I was in a nursing home, I didn't do my son's scholarship, so I want to start up this year again, giving out scholarships in my son's honor to keep his legacy alive.
I love that. That is absolutely beautiful, Alma. And what a strong mission to carry out. What a strong sense of self and of purpose and the importance of legacy that you're showing others, right? Because a lot of times when we lose someone, we tend to go through our grief period, our grieving period, and leave it at that. But you have taken it a step further to make sure that not only your life's work, but also your son's life remain alive and vibrant, and that they continue to make a beautiful impact for other people. And I love that you're doing that. One of the last things that I'd love for you to share, because your story has been so powerful and it's so impactful, that I'd love for you to share with our audience as a kind of going away, like last gift for our audience, for people who are struggling, for those of us who may be struggling and don't know where to start. Where do you start with just life, with just being able to see life in the way that we do today? Seeing the importance of just taking the first step. What would you say to those people who are struggling with that?
Just do it.
I love that.
Do it afraid. Just take
Mm.
that first step. Once you take that first step, then it's like when I published my first book, I always wanted to be an author. I was saying I want to be an author. I'm gonna be an author when I grow up. I'm gonna write a book one day. I'm gonna write a book. And life happened. My son passed away, and I began writing my first book. From the waiting room to the recovery room, and I could never finish that book. And later, I started writing another book called Dream Killers. And once I was able to identify the things that I let kill my dreams, doubt, low self esteem, procrastination, fear, once I released all of that, the things that had killed my dream, I was able to write from the waiting room to the recovery room. But when I held that first book in my hand, Dream Killers, and I saw my name on the book, then I realized, I visualized myself. I can be an author. I am an author. So, whatever it is that you want to do in life, visualize yourself doing it. Visualize how your life would change once you're accomplishing that dream. And once you visualize it, I have this saying that I love. I don't know who it's by, but it's like, if your head can conceive it and your heart can receive it, then you can achieve it. If your head can conceive it, your heart can receive it, then you can achieve it.
Alma, that is beautiful. I love that. That is a perfect way to end this beautiful episode on Flying Upstream, where what we do is share these beautiful stories just like yours that are so impactful and so beautiful. And we hope that it changes someone's life, a listener's life. So I want to thank you so much today, Alma, for being our guest on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course.
Yes. And thank you, Free Spirits, for listening in today and joining us on Flying Upstream, where we where we question everything and we explore unconventional paths. Hopefully, you found some inspiration. So until